think anybody's ever called me level-headed before. That was really generous. Thanks for having me. I thought I'd read first a new poem called Dilation. I thought I might say that it steals some language from this Bertolt Brecht poem called To Those Who Follow, or sometimes it's translated as To Those Who Come After. I also don't have any German, so I don't know how to choose between those titles, but you'll hear some echoes of that. So this is called Dilation. Is this about right, this volume?
Yeah.
Good. 1. We need to harness the vaguely erotic disappointment that attends the realization you aren't being followed, keys gripped between the fingers, ready to strike at the eyes. The after-image of Byzantine gold leaf dissolving in the trees when we emerge from the museum must be harnessed, and the delicate carnation of the sky at the rooftop screening and the dress of the hostess, its exploration of formative drives. If you were anything like me, you emerge from the hospital's automatic doors into the heat and glare of its parking lot, unable to recall the color of the rental or the demands of practical reason. You surface from the subway to find it's fully night and hard to remember the preceding generation's claims for disjunction. You saw the child of a Turkish diplomat fall from a penthouse balcony, curled up on a floor model at the Soho Crate and Barrel when you received the terrible news. From a poem that probably dates from 1939, addressed to an adjacent posterity. Green eyeshadow and surprising gentleness of the saleswoman who asks if I'm okay must be harnessed if we are to surpass camp and apathy, plainclothes security closing in. You feel emancipated briefly from fragmentation when the D train emerges onto the Manhattan Bridge, vertically polarized light entering the water, 76 stories of rippled steel refusing to be actual all at once. Stand and offer your seat to an old man who isn't there. Listen politely to his demand for a theater that combines distance and empathy, false proscenium lit to reveal evaporating value, the delicate carnation that follows heat and glare. 2. I came into the cities at a time in which the service industry employed a swift underclass of Spanish-speaking laborers. I came into the cities when the art world's post-medium pluralism valorized stupidity. In the midst of weather patterns of increasing extremity, I came into the cities, unsure if I should say gracias to the man refilling my glass, notes of chlorine, antidepressants, in trace amounts. One way was enumerating the bad forms of alienated collective power, breathing hot particles from Japan, bundled debt. Another way was passing beyond the reach of friends to internalize an allegory, tracking the dilation where aorta meets heart, minor tremor in the hand. Part of me wants to say there is a mock oratorical mode capable of vitalizing critical agency, and part of me wants to praise the maple's winged chimeras, the distance achieved from the parent tree, but mainly I want to argue their one thing, real if indefensible, like cities in time, spinning as they fall. My role in the slaughter doesn't disqualify the beauty I find in all forms of sheltered flame, little votive polis. That I eat while others starve does not refute the promise of dimming house lights, weird fullness of the instant before music. That I ventriloquize when I address you is the marker of my voice, important source of syrup and tonewood, coming to you live from the ellipses of Compatier and vase, grave air of a masterpiece, its notes of ozone and exhaust, jasmine and trace amounts, tracking the dilation of new forms of private temporality into public architecture, glass curtains as they dim. 3. The ideal is visible through its antithesis like small regions of warm blue underpainting, and this is its late July realization. I'm sorry, I knew you were expecting more. I'm not going to lecture the neighbor kid with the hydrant key about conserving water for posterity until I can think of a better idea for the spontaneous formation of a public, however brief. By the time you read this, if you were close enough to read this, if you were reading this, a threat to the first person was called in, prompting its evacuation, the panic you should take advantage of in order to compose a face, test predicates against, walk to Sunset Park and watch the soft-winged kites at magic hour when light appears imminent to the lit, warm blue scattering in the gaps between buildings and print. You can feel the content streaming. The ideal is a kind of longitudinal subject in which the poem is a note saying where I left you keys and a bottle of green wine, sea rise visible in the compound eye, mosaic image, flicker effect in which objects must move in order to persist, thus the preference of bees for wind-blown flowers. Thus, the analogy collapses like a colony, prompting its evacuation, but the formal capacity for likening still shines through its antithesis. Feel it misfiring, vaguely erotic disappointment that combines distance and empathy, carnation fading from the contrails, trying to conceive in a ready-to-assemble bed as the metropole shifts east. I believe there is a form of apology, both corporate and incantatory, that could convene the future it begs for leniency. Inherited dream, you can put anything in, antithetical blue, predicate green. I thought I'd read a few